Hi, my name is Easton Lewis, and today I'll be continuing with Chapter 8, which is the International Legal Environment of Business. At the beginning of this chapter, it lists the various dimensions of the international environment of business. These various dimensions include the political, economic, cultural, and legal dimensions. The political dimensions is the international business requires dealing with different types of governments, ranging from democracies to totalitarian states. The economic dimensions includes factors that affect businesses' investments. These factors are the differences in size of economic growth rate, impact of central planning versus a market economy, availability of disposable income, and lastly, the existence of an appropriate transportational infrastructure. Next is the cultural dimensions, and the cultural is learned norms of society based on values, beliefs, and attitudes. The language creates a cultural homogeneous environment. Lastly is the legal dimension. When venturing into a foreign company, business managers should be guided by natural legal systems of their own country and that of the host country and international law. The chapter continues with listing the various of laws of the family. And these laws include the common law, the Romanian Germanic law, the civil law, the Islamic law, the socialist law, and lastly, the Hindu law. Another law that is discussed in Chapter 8 is the international law. And in this law, it introduces the public and private international law. The public international law governs relationships between nations and states, and the private international law governs relationship between private parties involved in transactions across borders. The sources comes from customs treaties, judicial decisions, scholarly writings, and international organizations. The chapter also discusses international business law. These laws are governed from exit visas and working permits, tax treaties and antitrust matters, intellectual property rights protections, bilateral treaties, and multilateral trade agreements, such as the North American Free Trade Agreement, the European Union, and the World Trade Organization. The methods of engaging in international business is also introduced in this chapter. And this comes from trade, international licensing and franchising, and foreign direct investment. International trade is exporting goods and services from a country and importing goods and services into the country. International licensing also comes along with this, and this is the contractual agreements by which a company, which is a licensor, makes an intellectual property available to a foreign individual or company, which is a licensee, in return for a payment. The forms of payments include royalties or other compensations based on the volumes of goods sold or lump sum. Next is the international franchising, and this is a contractual agreement whereby a licensor permits a licensee to market and trade marketed goods or service in a particular nation. This helps avoid foreign direct investment restrictions and reduces chance of political instability. Requires exhaustive examinations of bilateral treaties of commerce and friendship and business laws of the franchise nation. The chapter then introduces the foreign direct investment, and it begins with introducing the foreign subsidiary. And this is when a company that is wholly or partially owned and controlled by a company based in another country helps expand foreign markets, acquire foreign resources and raw materials, improve production efficiency, acquire knowledge, and maintain closer contact with customers and competitors. Going along with the foreign direct investment is the joint venture. And the joint venture is a relationship between two or more persons or corporations, or an associate between a foreign multi-nation, and agency of the host nation's government or a host country national. This is set up for a specific undertaking for a limited time period. Next is the expropriation of private property. And the expropriation is taking away private property by a host country government for political or economic reasons. To limit the risk in politically unstable countries, is contracted on trade, licensing, franchising, and it is to take advantage of low-cost insurance against expropriation offered by the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. Continuing with the expropriation of private property is a bilateral investment treaty, which is also known as BIT. And this is a treaty between two parties to outline conditions for investment in either country. Next, the chapter introduces sovereign immunity doctrine. And this is a doctrine that foreign-owned private property that has been expropriated is immune from the jurisdiction of courts in the owner's country. It also goes along with the Foreign Sovereignty Immunities Acts. Next is the next doctrine is the Act of State doctrine, and in this doctrine, each nation is bound to respect the independence of another, and the courts of one nation will not send judgment on the acts of the courts of another nation. It also discusses export and import controls in this chapter. And export control is applied by governments to militarily sensitive goods to prevent unfriendly nations from obtaining these goods. The import controls prevent foreign companies from destroying homes and industries. This is through tariffs, quotas, and imposing anti-dumping duties. And then the European Union comes along. And this is originated from the European Economic Community, which was established through the Rome Treaty of 1957. Aims to free movement of goods, services, capital, and people across member boards. The Union is known as I may butcher this, but the Maastricht Summit held in 1991, which proposed a treaty that provided for monetary union through the creation of a single currency for the entire EU, the political union, and social dimension through the establishment of uniform labor and social security regulations. The structure of the European Union is structured by councils of ministers, the EU Commission, Parliament, which is the Assembly, the European Court of Justice, and the European Central Bank, and the European Monetary Union. The impacts of the European Union is divided by the unity of law, economic integration, and the political union. Next, the chapter discusses the North American Free Trade Agreement. This was ratified in 1994 and is aimed at eliminating barriers to free flow of goods, services, and investments among Canada, the United States, and Mexico. The structure is set up by Trade Commission, Secretary, and arbitral panels which dispute resolution via a 5-member panel. Next is the impact of the North American Free Trade Agreement. And this is this unites the three North American neighbors, provides model for the economic integration for other Central and Latin American nations, impacts on exports and imports among member nations, and serves as an institution for arbitration of duties. And then lastly, in this chapter, it discusses a global dispute resolution. It discusses arbitration, which is a conflicting parties submit their disagreements to a neutral decision maker and agree to abide by his or her decision in the litigation, which is a dispute resolution process going through the judicial system. I thought this chapter was interesting for various reasons. For one, learning all the laws and the characteristics that go behind them, I thought was interesting because you learn that obviously law is different for many ways, and having so many different laws include the different various ways that they affect business. So I thought that was interesting. and then also the dimensions, which is of the international environment business, which is to break down as political, economic, cultural, and legal. I thought those were very interesting as well, and knowing their characteristics. So thanks.